The Great Hall of Station Meridian was the largest room ever built by any species in the known galaxy. It was so big that clouds sometimes formed near its ceiling. 3,000 alien species sent their representatives here to discuss trade, war, peace, and the future of civilization itself. This was the Galactic Concord, and had ruled the stars for over 50,000 years. Today, they had gathered to laugh at a human. Kim Yuna stood at the central podium, feeling very small. She was 34 years old, with black hair tied back in a simple knot, and wearing a gray uniform that looked plain, compared to the flowing robes and glittering scales around her. The aliens towered over her. Some had tentacles. Some had wings. Some were made of living crystal that sang when they moved. All of them were looking at her, like she was a child who had wandered into a meeting of adults. "We request membership in the Galactic Concord," Yuna said, keeping her voice steady. "We ask for trading rights and recognition of Earth as a sovereign world." The laughter started with the Veloci delegation. They were insect-like creatures with clicking mandibles, and their laughter sounded like 1,000 beetles crawling over glass. Then the Harath joined in, their crystal bodies humming with amusement. Soon the entire hall was filled with the sound of 3,000 species finding humanity absolutely hilarious. High Coordinator Thiessen raised one of his many tentacles for silence. He was the leader of the ruling triad, the three most powerful species in the galaxy, and when he spoke, everyone listened. "Little human," he said, his voice dripping with false kindness. "Your species discovered fire only a moment ago by galactic standards. You still measure distance in light years, as if crossing such distances is impressive. You have no natural weapons, no psychic abilities, no hive mind efficiency. Your bodies are soft and break easily. You live for less than a century, which means you will be dead before most of us finish our morning meal." More laughter. Yuna did not react. "What?" Thiessen continued. "Could you possibly offer the Galactic Concord?" Yuna looked around the great hall slowly. She met the eyes and sensors and optical clusters of every delegation she could see. Then she smiled, just a little. "We offer friendship," she said, "and we strongly recommend you accept it." This was considered the funniest thing anyone had ever said in the history of the Concord. The laughter went on for nearly 10 minutes. Some species had to be helped from the hall because they were laughing so hard. They could not breathe. Far away from Station Meridian, in a part of the galaxy that the Concord preferred not to discuss. The Draconian hegemony was watching. The Draconians were reptiles, tall and covered in dark green scales. They had ruled 400 star systems for 2,000 years, and they had not conquered those systems through diplomacy. They took what they wanted, killed anyone who resisted, and enslaved the rest. The Galactic Concord knew about them but did nothing. The Draconians were too strong, too violent, and too far away to be worth fighting. Fleet Commander Vorath sat in his command chair aboard the dreadnought Conqueror's Pride, reading intelligence reports about Earth. He was old for a Draconian, nearly 300 years, and he had conquered more worlds than he could remember. This one looked easy. "One planet," he said to his tactical council. 80 small ships. Their strongest weapons are nuclear devices that could not scratch our paint. They have no allies, no defenses worth mentioning, and no idea what is coming. His second in command, a scarred female named Cressa, leaned forward. The Concord might protest. Vorath laughed, showing rows of sharp teeth. "The Concord will send a strongly worded message and then forget humans ever existed. They always do." He stood up, his tail swishing with excitement. "Prepare the 3rd Subjugation Fleet, 200 warships, 50,000 ground troops. We will enslave their population, harvest their resources, and be home before the spawning festival." The order went out, and across Draconian space, Ships began to move. Back on Station Meridian, the laughter had finally died down. Thiessen was explaining to Yuna, in the patient tone one might use with a slow child, that humanity's application for membership would be considered at some point in the next 1,000 years, which was the Concorde's polite way of saying never. Yuna nodded and thanked him for his time. As she walked out of the great hall, she passed the Veloci ambassador, who clicked his mandibles at her mockingly. "Go home, little human," he said. "Play with your chemical rockets and your primitive weapons. The galaxy has no place for species like yours." Yuna stopped. She turned to face the Veloci, and something in her eyes made him take a step backward without knowing why. "I will remember you said that," she said softly. Then she walked away. In her private quarters, Yuna opened a secure channel to Earth. The face of Park Ga appeared on the screen, the chair of the United Earth Defense Council. She was 52 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and eyes that had seen too much. "How did it go?" Ga asked. "As expected." They laughed. "They refused. They think we are insects to be stepped on." Yuna paused. "The Draconians are mobilizing. 200 ships." Gia nodded slowly. "Only 200? They think it will be enough." For a long moment, both women were silent. Then Gia smiled, and it was not a nice smile. "Let them come," she said. "It is time the galaxy learned what humans really are." Yuna ended the call and looked out the viewport at the stars. Somewhere out there, a fleet was coming to destroy her home. The galaxy expected humanity to die screaming, another footnote in the long history of species that had reached too far and paid the price. They were wrong. They were so very, very wrong. The Draconian fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system like a pack of wolves arriving at a sheep farm. 200 warships hung in the darkness between stars, their weapons hot and ready. Fleet Commander Vorth looked at the distant yellow sun and felt nothing but contempt. "Open a channel to the planet," he ordered. "All frequencies." The communications officer obeyed, and Vorth's voice echoed across the solar system, reaching every radio, every screen, every device capable of receiving a signal. "Attention, humans. You are now subjects of the Draconian hegemony. Surrender your governments, your resources, and your population for processing. Resistance will result in extinction. You have one planetary rotation to comply." He cut the channel and settled back in his chair, satisfied. In his experience, most species surrendered after hearing that message. The ones who did not soon wished they had. On Earth, the message was received in silence. In Sol, deep beneath the mountains, Park Ga stood in the command center of the United Earth Defense Council. Screens covered every wall, showing the positions of the Draconian ships, the status of Earth's defenses, and a countdown timer that read 16 hours. "They are exactly where we expected them to be," reported Admiral Lee Dong-Yun, a tall man with a calm voice and steady hands. 200 ships, 50,000 ground troops in transport vessels. Standard Draconian invasion formation. Good. Jihei studied the displays. Activate Protocol Songbird. Full deployment. Around her, officers began typing commands. Across the solar system, things began to happen. On Mars, structures that had looked like abandoned mining equipment started to hum with power. Satellites that had drifted uselessly for years suddenly came to life. And in orbit around Earth, 80 ships that looked old and slow began to change, their hulls splitting open to reveal weapons that had never been seen by any species in the galaxy. The Draconians detected some of this activity. They found it amusing. "Commander," the sensor officer reported, "the humans are launching additional vessels. Small craft, chemical propulsion. They appear to be some kind of defensive platforms." Vorth did not even look up from his meal. Let them waste their resources. It changes nothing. The fleet continued its approach, crossing the orbit of Neptune, then Uranus, then Saturn. Draconian scouts had been watching Earth for 6 months through stealth drones, mapping every defense, every weapon, every ship. Vareth knew exactly what the humans had, and it was pathetic. Or so he believed in the command center on Earth. Jie received a call from Ambassador Kim Yuna, still on Station Meridian. "The Concorde is watching," Yuna reported. "They have betting pools on how long we will last. The most popular guess is 3 days." "And their official response to the invasion?" "Deep concern and hopes for a peaceful resolution." Yuna's voice was flat. "They have already begun drafting memorial statements for humanity." Jie laughed softly. "How thoughtful. And the stealth drones?" "Still transmitting exactly what we want them to see. The Draconians have no idea what they are walking into." "Perfect." Jie looked at the countdown timer. 14 hours. "It is almost time." "Are you ready?" "I have been ready my whole life," Yuna replied. "Give them hell, Madam Chair." The channel closed. Jie turned to Admiral Lee. "Begin Phase 1, she said. "Let us show them what Earth can do." The Draconian fleet passed the orbit of Jupiter. They were now close enough to see Earth with their own sensors, a small blue marble hanging in the void. Vareth looked at it and saw only resources to be harvested, slaves to be taken, another conquest to add to his record. "Time to planetary bombardment range?" he asked. 4 hours, Commander." "Excellent. Prepare the ground troops for deployment. I want the major population centers secured within Commander." The sensor officer's voice cracked. "Unusual energy readings from the 4th planet." Vareth frowned. "Mars?" "There is nothing on Mars but a small human research station." "Sir, the readings are—" "I have never seen anything like this." "Power levels are—" The screen flashed white. Across the gulf of space, Mars had come alive. What had appeared to be dead rock and abandoned equipment was revealed as the largest weapons platform ever built by human hands. 3 hidden fusion reactors, buried deep beneath the Martian surface, poured their power into focusing. Arrays that stretched across the planet's surface, like a spiderweb of death dot, and that power was now pointed directly at the Draconian fleet. The first shot crossed 80 million kilometers. In less than 5 minutes, it struck the dreadnought Conqueror's Pride dead center, the greatest warship in the Draconian fleet, home to 53,000 crew members, simply ceased to exist. One moment it was there. The next, there was only an expanding cloud of superheated gas where a ship used to be. Vareth had transferred to his backup command ship only an hour earlier for a routine inspection. He watched his former flagship die and felt something he had not experienced in 200 years. Fear. All ships, evasive maneuvers. He screamed, "Return fire!" Target that at second shot hit the carrier Slave's Burden. The third hit the cruiser Broken Worlds. The fourth and fifth hit 2 destroyers that were trying to flee. The Draconians. Weapons could not reach Mars. Their targeting systems could not lock onto something so far away. They were being killed from a distance they had thought impossible, by a species they had considered primitive, with weapons they had never imagined. "Scatter the fleet," Vareth ordered. "All ships, independent movement. We will close the distance," and that was when Earth's ships arrived. They did not fly toward the Draconians. They did not accelerate like normal vessels. They simply appeared, jumping across millions of kilometers in the blink of an eye, materializing among the scattered Draconian warships like sharks among panicked fish. And they were fast. So impossibly fast. Their weapons fired before Draconian sensors could track them. Their shields absorbed hits that should have destroyed them. They danced through the battle like ghosts, untouchable and unstoppable. Vareth watched his fleet die. 100 ships gone in 10 minutes. Then 150. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Our intelligence said they were primitive. Our drones showed us their defenses. How can this be happening?" His tactical officer turned to him with terror in her eyes. "Commander, the drones were compromised. Everything they sent us was false. The humans knew we were coming. They have always known. They were waiting for us." On the bridge of his dying ship, surrounded by the wreckage of his fleet, Fleet Commander Vareth finally understood. They had not come to conquer humans. Humans had invited them to die. The battle lasted 47 minutes. When it was over, 200 Draconian warships had become nothing but dust and debris floating in the cold darkness of space. 50,000 soldiers who had dreamed of conquest and glory were gone forever. The greatest military force the hegemony had ever sent beyond its borders had been erased as easily as a child erases a drawing. Captain Shin Nari stood on the bridge of the UEDN Songbird and watched the last Draconian ship die. She was 31 years old, with short black hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. Her ship was small compared to the enemy dreadnoughts, barely 100 meters long, but it had killed 17 of them in the past hour. "Target destroyed," her weapons officer reported. "No remaining enemy vessels detected." "Confirmed kills?" Nari asked. 200 ships. Total enemy casualties estimated at 53,000. The officer paused. "Our casualties, 0. Our damaged ships, 0. Nari nodded slowly. She had known this would happen. She had trained for this her entire career. But knowing something and seeing it were different things. The Draconians had come to enslave her world, to kill her people, to take everything humanity had built. And they had been destroyed so completely that not even their memories would survive. She felt no joy. Only relief and a cold kind of satisfaction. "Open a channel to Fleet Command," she ordered. Admiral Lee Dong-yoon appeared on her screen. His face calm, but his eyes bright with something that might have been pride. "Captain Shin, report. The Draconian 3rd Subjugation Fleet has been eliminated, Admiral. All enemy vessels destroyed. All enemy personnel killed or captured." She paused. "We have 14 survivors from escape pods. They are being transported to holding facilities." "Excellent work, Captain. Stand by for Phase 2. The channel closed. Nari turned to her first officer, Lieutenant Commander Beek Suho, a quiet man who rarely spoke but missed nothing. "Phase 2, she said. "The hegemony itself." Suho nodded. "They will not expect us so soon. That is the point." Across the solar system, Earth's hidden fleet was already moving. Ships that had pretended to be slow and primitive revealed their true nature, jumping through space in ways that should have been impossible. They gathered at the edge of the system. 100 vessels that carried enough firepower to crack a planet, and then they were gone, vanishing into the darkness between stars. Their destination, the Draconian homeworld, back on Earth. Part GA watched the fleet depart from her command center. Around her, officers were celebrating, hugging each other, and shouting with joy. The invasion had been stopped. Earth was safe. They had won, but GA did not celebrate. She knew this was only the beginning. "Connect me to Ambassador Kim," she ordered. Yuna's face appeared on the screen. She was still on Station Meridian, surrounded by aliens who had not yet heard the news. "It is done," Jihei said. "The fleet is destroyed." Yuna closed her eyes for a moment. When she opened them, they were wet. "Casualties?" "None. They never even touched us. Thank God." Yuna took a deep breath. "The Concord does not know yet. They're still making jokes about how long we will last. They will know soon enough. Our fleet is en route to the hegemony. We will have their homeworld under blockade within 6 hours. Yuna's eyes widened. 6 hours? That is impossible by their understanding of physics. Yes. Jihei allowed herself a small smile. We have been building these ships for 200 years, Yuna. Eyeing them. Improving them. Waiting for the moment when we would need them. Today is that moment. What about the slave worlds? Liberation teams are being deployed as we speak. 17 planets will be free by this time tomorrow. Jihee's smile faded. The hard part comes after. Rebuilding. Healing. Helping people who have known nothing but chains learn what freedom means. And the Concord? That is your job. Request time to address the assembly. Tell them humanity has a message for the galaxy. Yuna nodded. I will make them listen. The channel closed. Jia turned back to her displays, watching the dots that represented her ships racing toward Draconian space. In a few hours, the galaxy would change forever. In the wreckage of the battle, a single Draconian escape pod drifted among the debris. Inside, Fleet Commander Vorath sat in darkness, his scales pale with shock, his mind struggling to understand what had happened. He had conquered dozens of worlds. He had killed millions. He had believed himself unstoppable, a master of war, a lord of the stars, and human soft, weak, short-lived humans had destroyed his fleet in less than an hour. The escape pod's radio crackled. A human voice spoke, calm and professional. Draconian survivor, this is UADN Rescue Team 7. We are approaching your position. Do not attempt to resist. You will be treated according to the conventions of war and given a fair trial for crimes against sentient beings. Acknowledge. Vorath did not respond. He could not. His mind was still echoing with the last thing he had seen before his ship died. A human woman on his view screen. Young and cold-eyed, offering him surrender. You have 30 seconds to comply, she had said. He had refused. He had ordered his ships to ram the human vessels, to take as many of them with him as possible. It had not mattered. His ships had been too slow, too clumsy, too primitive compared to the dancing ghost that destroyed them. The humans had not even bothered to dodge. They had simply killed his fleet and moved on, as if swatting insects. The rescue team reached his pod. The airlock opened. Human soldiers in armor stood looking at him, their weapons ready but not raised. Fleet Commander Vorath, one of them said, you are now a prisoner of the United Earth Defense Network. Come with us. Vorath stood on shaking legs. As he was led away, he passed a viewport and saw, just for a moment, the blue marble of Earth hanging in the distance. Such a small world. Such a soft-looking people. And they had just ended an empire. The galaxy had laughed at humanity. But no one was laughing now. The Great Hall of Station Meridian had never been so quiet. 3,000 species sat in their seats, their tentacles and claws and crystal limbs frozen in shock. The holographic display above the central podium was showing them something impossible. Recordings of the battle at Seoul, captured by human ships and transmitted across the galaxy for everyone to see. They watched Draconian dreadnoughts explode. They watched human vessels move in ways that broke every law of physics they knew. They watched 200 warships, the pride of the hegemony, erased in less than an hour by a species they had dismissed as primitive insects. Kim Yuna stood at the podium, her gray uniform unchanged, her expression calm. She had requested time to address the assembly, and for the first time in galactic history, the Concord had granted a human's request immediately. Distinguished delegates, she said, her voice clear in the silent hall, I come with news. 14 hours ago, the Draconian hegemony launched an unprovoked attack on Earth. Their fleet of 200 warships has been completely destroyed. We suffered no casualties. No one moved. No one breathed. Additionally, our forces have liberated 17 Draconian slave worlds in the past 6 hours. The Draconian homeworld is currently under blockade. Their government has surrendered unconditionally. High Coordinator Thizan's tentacles were rigid with shock. His mouthparts moved several times before sound came out. That is impossible, he managed. The hegemony has thousands of ships. Their empire has stood for 2,000 years. You cannot have had, Yuna said gently. Past tense, High Coordinator. The Draconian hegemony no longer exists as a military power. Their remaining forces have laid down their weapons. Their slave markets are being closed as we speak. Their prison camps are being opened. She touched a control, and the holographic display changed. Now it showed the Draconian homeworld, a gray planet covered in industrial cities and military bases. Human ships surrounded it like a shell, their weapons dark but ready. On the surface, Draconian flags were being lowered and replaced with the simple blue banner of the United Earth Humanitarian Corps. We have not come to conquer, Yuna continued. We have not come to enslave. We have come to free. Every being held in chains by the hegemony will be released. Every world they conquered will be given the choice of independence or assistance. Every crime they committed will be documented and judged. The Veloci ambassador raised a trembling claw. How long have you possessed this technology? Yuna looked at him. This was the same Veloci who had told her to go home and play with her primitive weapons less than 2 weeks ago. She remembered his clicking, mocking laughter. Since before your species achieved spaceflight, she said. The Veloci made a sound that might have been a whimper. Then why? Another delegate demanded. Why hide? Why pretend to be weak? Why let us laugh at you? Yuna was quiet for a moment, choosing her words carefully. Because we were watching, she said finally. Learning. Waiting to see what kind of galaxy we were joining. She looked around the great hall slowly, meeting eyes and sensors and optical clusters. We hoped you would be better than this. The strong preying on the weak. The advanced dismissing the primitive. Empires built on slavery and conquest, while the conquered looked away and pretended not to see. Her voice hardened. We have seen this before. We have been the primitive ones before, when invaders came to our shores with weapons we could not match. We remember what it was like to be conquered, enslaved, dismissed as less than human. We remember the empires that thought they would rule forever. She paused. We also remember what happened to those empires. Thiessen found his voice again. What do you want from us? The same thing we asked for before. Friendship, trading rights, recognition. Yuna tilted her head slightly, and perhaps a bit more respect this time. And if we refuse? Yuna smiled, and it was not a threatening smile. It was sad, almost pitying. Then we will leave you alone, High Coordinator. We will not force you to be our friends. We will not conquer you or threaten you. We will simply continue, freeing slaves, helping the weak, building a better galaxy, with or without you. She let that sink in. But I think you will find that many species will want to be our friends. The ones you ignored, the ones you dismissed, the ones who have been waiting for someone, anyone, to stand up and say that slavery is wrong, that conquest is wrong, that the strong do not have the right to crush the weak simply because they can. The holographic display changed one more time. Now it showed a map of the galaxy, with hundreds of dots marking worlds that had been conquered, enslaved, or oppressed by various empires over the millennia. Human ships were already moving toward many of them. We are not here to rule the galaxy, Yuna said. We are here to change it. And you can either help us, or you can watch from the sidelines while history leaves you behind. She stepped back from the podium. That is all I have to say. I will await your decision. The silence that followed was the loudest thing the Great Hall had ever heard. On Earth, Park Jie watched the broadcast with Admiral Lee. Around them, the The command center was quiet, everyone holding their breath. Think they will accept? Lee asked. Jihei smiled. They do not have much choice. But that is not the point. Then what is? The slave worlds, the conquered peoples, the forgotten and the ignored. Jihei pointed at the map of the galaxy, still displayed on their screens. They are watching this too. They have been waiting for someone to help them. Today, they learned that help is coming. Lee nodded slowly. We will have a lot of work to do. Yes. Jihei stood, her old bones creaking. But we have been preparing for this for 200 years. We are ready. She looked at the blue dot of Earth on the display, so small among the countless stars. Our ancestors dreamed of reaching the stars, she said softly. They dreamed of finding other life, of becoming part of something greater than themselves. They never imagined it would be like this. But I think they would be proud. Because we won? Jihei shook her head. Because we won by being exactly what we always wanted to be. Not conquerors, not rulers, just helpers, protectors. The people who stand up when others cannot. She smiled, and for the first time in days, it reached her eyes. That is what humanity was always meant to be. 1 year had passed as the day the Draconian fleet vanished forever. The galaxy was a different place now. Not because humanity ruled it, but because humanity had proven that rulers could fall. The old order, where the strong took what they wanted and the weak suffered in silence, was crumbling. In its place, something new was growing. On the former slave world of Vithos Prime, a young girl with 4 arms and purple skin sat with her grandmother in a field of blue grass. The sky above them was clear for the first time in generations. No longer choked with smoke from the Draconian factories that had once covered the planet. Tell me about the before times, the girl said. Her grandmother was quiet for a long moment. Her eyes, large and golden, looked at something far away. We were property, she said finally. We had no names, only numbers. We worked in the factories until our bodies broke, and then they threw us away like trash. If we cried, they beat us. If we tried to run, they killed us. I saw my mother die in the mines when I was younger than you. The girl held her grandmother's hand tightly. What changed? The humans came. The old woman pointed at the sky, where a small ship was passing overhead. It was painted white with a blue symbol on its hull, the sign of the United Earth Humanitarian Corps. They came with their impossible ships and their impossible weapons. And they said to the masters, no more. The masters laughed. They said humans were weak, primitive, nothing. She made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. They stopped laughing very quickly. Are the humans gods? No, little one. The grandmother pulled her close. They are just people. They get tired. They grow old. They make mistakes. They argue among themselves. But they remember what it is like to be small and afraid. They remember what it is like to have no one coming to help. And when they became strong, they decided to be the help they once wished for. Far away, on Station Meridian, Ambassador Kim Yuna was meeting with the reformed Galactic Council. The Great Hall looked the same as it had a year ago, but everything else had changed. Delegate Thyssen, who had once laughed at humanity, now worked closely with human representatives on a dozen committees. His tentacles no longer moved with arrogance, but with something like humility. I still do not understand you, he admitted to Yuna privately. You could rule the galaxy. You could take whatever you want. Instead, you build schools, hospitals, farms. You train doctors and teachers and engineers for species that mocked you. What would ruling the galaxy give us? Yuna asked. More problems. More responsibility. More enemies. She shrugged. We have enough challenges on Earth. Climate damage to repair. Poverty to fight. Making sure our children grow up kind. Why would we want to add galactic administration to that list? But the power is a tool, delegate, not a goal. Yuna looked out the viewport at the stars. A wise human once said that you can judge a civilization by how it treats its weakest members. We spent a very long time learning that lesson. We are not going to forget it now. In orbit around a distant world, Admiral Shin Nari commanded the first humanitarian fleet. Her ships carried no conquest troops, no occupation forces. They carried doctors, engineers, teachers, and supplies. They responded to disasters, fed the hungry, healed the sick, and protected the weak. It was strange work for a warrior. But Nari found she preferred it. Another convoy ready for departure, her first officer, Beak Suho, reported. Medical supplies for the Velar system. They had an outbreak of lung sickness last month. Send it. Nari looked at the planet below them, a green world that had once been a draconian prison colony. Now it was free. Children played in streets that had once been execution grounds. Families reunited after decades apart. New governments were being formed, new laws written, new futures imagined. Do you ever miss it? Suho asked. The fighting? Nari considered the question. I miss the simplicity, she admitted. In battle, everything is clear. Kill or be killed. Win or lose. But this, she gestured at the planet. This is harder. Building is harder than destroying. Healing is harder than hurting. But it matters more. Some would say you are soft. Some would be wrong. Nari's eyes hardened for just a moment. We still have enemies. Remnants of the old powers hiding in the dark places. Pirates, warlords, species that believe might makes right. When they threaten the people we protect, we stop them. She paused. But we do not become them. That is the line we do not cross. On Earth, in a small apartment in Bizen, retired Chair Park Ga sat with her granddaughter, watching news from across the galaxy. The little girl was 7 years old and full of questions. Grandmother, why did we hide for so long? Ga smiled. Her hair was fully white now, and her hands shook sometimes, but her mind was still sharp. Because we wanted to be ready, she said. Not ready to fight. We were always ready for that. Ready to help. Ready to build instead of destroy. Ready to be what we always wished someone had been for us in our own dark times. What dark times? Long ago, when humans first learned to sail the seas, the strong nations would go to weaker ones and take everything. Land, gold, people. They called it progress. They called it civilization. But it was just cruelty wearing a pretty mask. Ga pulled her granddaughter onto her lap. We told ourselves we would be different when we went to the stars. That we would not repeat those mistakes. It took us a long time to be sure we meant it. And now? Ga pointed at the screen, where a human medical team was treating sick children on an alien world. The children were scared at first, but a human doctor with a kind face was making them laugh, showing them funny tricks with a glowing ball. Now we get to work, Jihei said. There is so much pain in the galaxy, so much fear and suffering. We cannot fix all of it, but we can fix some. And maybe, if we work hard enough and long enough, our grandchildren will live in a galaxy where no one is afraid, where no one goes hungry, where no one is alone. Is that possible? I do not know. Ga kissed the top of her granddaughter's head. But it is worth trying. It is always worth trying. Outside the window, the stars were coming out. Somewhere among them, human ships were moving, carrying hope to worlds that had never known it. The galaxy that had laughed at humanity was learning a new lesson, that strength means nothing without kindness, that power means nothing without purpose, and that the smallest world could change everything. The Draconian fleet had come to Earth expecting easy prey. The galaxy had laughed, expecting a quick tragedy. They had been wrong about everything. And now, at last, the real story was beginning.